there's something I see to follow up on, I'll do that.
Okay, good.
Okay. From your experience with Hugh Carey and observing him from the private sector, what would you say is his contribution over his 2 terms as governor, those 8 years?
Well, I think like everyone else, I probably have to start with the crisis in New York. I saw Hugh Carey first in the UDC. People think about New York City, but they forget that the first crisis that he faced was with the Urban Development Corporation. And he faced up to it very squarely, very fairly. That was resolved, and then he went on to the city, where he was really the force in terms of resolving that crisis.
What qualities did you see him bring to the job that was there to be done?
Well, first of all, he's a very quick read. He has a very bright mind. He's a man that has had the ability, and in those days, and still has the ability to walk into a room, get the facts, absorb them, and come to a decision. Some people can't come to a decision, but Governor Carey, in my experience, was a man that could come to it quickly, and I think history will show he made an awful lot of good decisions.
Mm-hmm. It's another inquiry that I've passed along to people, and if you could extrapolate where Hugh Carey's place might be when we look at the governors of the 20th century, let's say, starting with Teddy Roosevelt at the turn of the century, and of course you got, FDR is there, Nelson Rockefeller is there. How do you think Carey's going to stack up?
Well, I think he'll stack up very well, and I think that history will show that really, for example, the conservative nature of the fiscal conservatism that was preached by Ronald Reagan really started in the northeastern part of the country. And Hugh Carey, who was considered by most people to be a liberal Democrat, in point of fact, by mid-year, in his first year, was considered somewhat conservative from a fiscal point of view. And I think that really was bred from the fact that he was on the firing line, the problems were there, he reacted there, and as you'll recall, what he said was that he found out that really the private sector was necessary if the public sector was going to continue social programs of value. So what I think really happened in the Carey administration was we saw a wedding of fiscal responsibility and social concern. And one of the things that I'll always remember about Hugh Carey was the fact that he never backed off on the social issues either. But he recognized that they had to be viewed in the context of fiscal responsibility because we could blow it for everyone if we didn't have a balanced approach in terms of what we did. So I think history will show him to be a man of character, a man of concern, and a man of conscience. And he fulfilled his responsibilities to the people of the state, not only in terms of preserving the fiscal integrity of the state, but also preserving many of the social programs, which New York is known for.
Let's look 5 or 10 years down the road if we can. And Hugh Carey has been out of public life, and his name comes up in conversation, or you see his name in the newspaper, and your memory bank is jogged. What's the first thing that's going to percolate to the surface?
Well, the first thing I would really think is the bright and alert nature of the man. And the first time I really saw him in very tough circumstances. They were a room of heavy hitters from the financial world, and they thought they were going to lean on him. And in short order, they found that they couldn't lean on him. That A, he knew what he was talking about, B, he wasn't about to be backed down, and C, he had his own program, which he wanted to talk about. So that you saw the brains, you saw the integrity, and you saw the resolve. By the same token, 5 minutes after that confrontation, if you will, he had everybody laughing, because he has that wonderful wit, which in times of stress and strife play a very important role in terms of keeping people moving along rather than getting bogged down in the problem. So, to me, I'll always see a man, in my mind, in the first instance, that had that tremendous vitality, both in the intellectual sense and also in the human sense, where he never lost his sense of humor.
Good. It was easy. You're easy.
I liked it.
Ask me what you want to ask me, and I'll respond as
Yeah.
spontaneously as I can, and we'll
That's
see how it goes, yeah.
Okay. From where you have been in New York State and where you sit now, what do you think could be your sort of nugget of truth insofar as the contribution of Hugh Carey during his gubernatorial years? And if you like to look back to the congressional years, that's okay too, because other folks have. But what has he been able to do, do you think?
Well, if you say what nugget, meaning would I concentrate on one particular area, what is that off-the-cuff reaction when somebody mentions Hugh Carey's name to me? It's always one of courage. And I say courage because I was with him, I guess, as so many were, during the real crises we had in '75 and '76. And as I said earlier, I'm not a Democrat. Prior to Hugh Carey, I supported the Republican candidates for governor here. It was amazing to me to watch Hugh Carey during that particular crisis, because after all, he is a politician. But it came through to me very rapidly that the state and its welfare came first, and I watched a man who had the courage to make decisions that could have been, and probably would have been, had the outcome been a little bit different, political dynamite for him. After all, I watched a Democratic governor take over the city from a Democratic mayor. If anybody had asked me, would that have happened, or could that ever happen, I would have said no. But throughout that crisis, every time we got to a point where we felt the governor had to intervene, whether he liked it or not, Felix Rohatyn and I would approach the governor. And once we laid it out for him and told him that we were convinced that he had to take another step, he never backed up one bit. He did what had to be done. And that's the sort of thing that I always remember about, and I guess I will always remember about Hugh Carey. It was to me an amazing demonstration of somebody who knew he had a job to do, and he was going to do it notwithstanding what the personal consequences to him might have been.
One of the other questions that I've asked from time to time, if you look at the governors in the 20th century, beginning with Teddy Roosevelt and going on to people like FDR and Nelson Rockefeller, where do you think Hugh Carey might stack up in that crowd? Of course, we got another 20 years or so of the 20th century to worry about, but where do you think he is now? Well,
it's a little bit difficult for me to answer that question per se, because I'm not a New Yorker. You know, I came to New York I moved to New York City, at least, in the early 70s, but I came to the New York area in '65. So I didn't go through those prior administrations, although I've learned a great deal about them. But I think when people think back, Hugh Carey will come out pretty high in that, because, you know, we have a saying in our business here: has someone been put to the test? We bring up a lot of management people who move through the ranks and achieve, you know, great success in moving up in the business. But it really isn't until somebody is put to a very severe test that you really know everything you have to know about them. We have had crises around here like long strikes, or the famous Second Avenue fire at New York Telephone Company, or a company that has a great many very difficult problems, either internally or externally. And until you watch a management employee operate under stress and really be put to the test, you really don't know whether he's all you think he is. Now, I do go back then to Hugh Carey and say Hugh Carey was indeed put to the test on 2 or 3 occasions. not only with respect to New York City's fiscal problems, but the state's fiscal problems. And he did something about it, and he took those political risks that he had to take to do something about it. I'm not sure that's happened to every one of his prior governors. I think people will think about that. And I'll go back to what he's doing now, this work that he has me doing with him, this Council on State Priorities, where he's trying to lay out, he's trying to give the new governor, and he decided to do this before he ever knew who was going to be the new governor, but he wanted to give that new governor at least a 6 months head start by at least laying out for him what those difficult problems were that he was probably going to encounter immediately. Not all through his administration, but what he was going to encounter immediately, and give him at least a feel of those things early on. I think to a great extent that gives a demonstration of a very unselfish man, again a very courageous man, and somebody that wants to leave the administration in as good a shape as he can possibly leave it, notwithstanding what those priorities may point out. Whatever we lay out is obviously going to talk about things that he was not able to finish or accomplish. So, you know, I think that's the sort of thing that people will remember about Hugh Carey.
Good. You did it.